Hey everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, it's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. In my opinion, one of the best places online for clinical trial content and information, however you're finding me, whether it's on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, my blog, theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thank you for tuning in and consuming the content. Let's get right into it. I got a lot of questions to do. I've been sick. I've had the flu for the last week or so I'm finally starting to get back into it and answering these questions, and I've had a lot of questions coming up, so I just want to get right into them. For those of you who don't know how it works, you send your questions. They could be anonymously to dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I'll do my best to get to all of them and answer them, and I'll keep you anonymous unless you specifically want me not to. Let me know in the email. Dan, I'm a foreign medical doctor and want to go into research. I want to get into a CRA job, clinical research associate, otherwise known as a monitor. But I don't know how to start and how to prepare myself before I start sending my resume. The experience I had about research was during medical school. Please do advise me on how to go about it. So I'm assuming you're in the U.S. and you're a foreign doctor from another country. And at my company, South Coast Clinical Trials, we've actually hired lots of study coordinators who were former foreign medical doctors or medical doctors, and they immigrated to the U.S. I think if you haven't done that yet and you're willing to get your feet wet in the industry, it seems like you don't know that much about clinical research except for the research that you did during medical school. If you're willing to swallow some pride a little bit, maybe for a year or so, maybe for 2 years, apply as a clinical research coordinator or even a sub-investigator for some of these research clinics. And let me see if this gain is on. Yes. So apply as a study coordinator or a sub-I for a research clinic, and then you can establish contacts in the industry and get a job as a CRA that way. I know many of my former study coordinators who were in your position as foreign medical doctors went on to become CRAs. If they didn't actually take the med school exams and became doctors in the U.S. So a lot of them actually took their ECFMG, I believe it's called. So thank you for the question. Again, if you're willing to swallow your pride and maybe be a study coordinator for a while, I know you're overqualified, but it is a great way to get started in this industry. Okay, next question. Dan, I just want to let you know I'm getting a telephone interview with a Seattle company. Thank you for your commitment to those of us in clinical research. Okay, so this is just a compliment. Thank you very much. Not a question, sorry, but good luck with that. And by the way, you know who you are. Let me know how it goes. Send me an email. Here's another one. Okay. I've been getting a lot, so I don't want to skip any. Here's... Okay. Hi, Dan. I had a question about clinical trial contracting and payments in the U.S. When you set up a contract for a study as a research site, what do you ask for overhead, and how do you account for all the miscellaneous fees such as study record storage and all the other non-essential things that are not necessarily covered in the procedure for the budgets? And this is a good question, actually. I asked for 30% overhead, and I ask for everything I can think of. I ask for storage fee. Some of these research studies require that you hold on to the study records for 5, 10, I've even seen 20 years after the study's being conducted. So you have to take into account how much that's going to cost you. You don't want to just give them a cookie cutter budget and accept it. And then in 20 years, you're losing money because you're still paying for storage and all that stuff. I even break it down, and I know some sites have broken it down into even figuring out how much paper for the copier they're going to dedicate to the study and how much toner it's going to use up over time, maintenance and repair for the machines, the study coordinator time. Sometimes, actually oftentimes, just because a study ends doesn't mean that the work stops. So the payments stop, your revenues stop coming in. But as you all know, the studies are ongoing. There's the CRAs want to come in, they want to collect data, they want to make sure you're answering your queries, and this could be well after the enrollment and your last patient has already completed the study. I'm doing a study where our last patient finished over a year ago, and the monitor's coming in regularly. He's regularly coming in. I'm regularly answering queries, regularly having to do things with the IRBs, whatever it may be, and it doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. They're saying that they plan to close out all sites by the end of 2015. So here we are in January 2014. Our last patient was in January 2013. We're not getting paid anymore, but we're still having to do all this work and service the trial probably for 2 more years. So you want to factor in all these things into the overhead is usually the best way, and also line by line item for the things that you will be probably having to do. So take that into consideration as well. Here's one. Okay. Hi Dan, I want to close my clinic that I have opened 7 months ago since my business partner left me alone about 3 months ago, and I am paying everything myself. I have a full-time job as a nurse, and that is how I pay everything in research. I have one study that I have not been able to enroll any patients since it's very hard to get patients with that condition. Please, how do I get more studies? I've tried clinicaltrials.org for months and no luck. Any help is appreciated. It's clinicaltrials.gov. So you want to go on there, you want to make contacts. I have a DVD, $39, I believe it is right now, how to get more studies. It's about an hour and a half of me just giving all the strategies, everything I know of how to get studies. I have lots of free content on this blog. The number one thing I would say to do, here's a little freebie for the podcast. Go on clinicaltrials.gov, search for actively recruiting studies. That means studies that are seeking participants. And when you go on clinicaltrials.gov, you got to understand that they're not making it for you, the research sites. They're making it for study participants. But sometimes you could find the study directors on there. You can call them. You can email them. You can find them on LinkedIn. I go into great detail on this in my DVD, how to get more studies. And I have lots of free content on the blog for this as well. So check it out. Here's another question. Hi, Dan. I've been enjoying your podcast. I would be interested in learning more about mistakes made in clinical trials. I work in a very busy phase 1 center where I think we do a very good job. However, once in a while, test tubes get mixed up, a PK sample is missed, a mistake is made, mistake in labeling, things like that. Since I've never worked in another research center or other company, I don't know how common this is. I have not been able to find any info on this on the internet. When I search for mistakes, most searches bring up stuff like protocol deviations, including non-favorable candidates, not signing informed consents, and things like that, which I'm not concerned about since we work according to very stringent SOPs and have a good quality control and quality assurance system in place. However, screw-ups still occasionally happen, and I would like to learn from other people's mistakes, but I guess no center wants to admit to mistakes. So these kind of mistakes happen regardless of how big or small they are. If you don't follow the protocol by the letter to the T, it is a protocol deviation. You have to send these to the IRB. When you say things get mixed up, like test tubes get mixed up or PK sample is missed, these could often be safety issues, especially from the IRB's perspective. If things are being missed, that could potentially compromise the safety of a study participant. You may think it's not a serious mistake, but it is. They're all protocol deviations. They could be minor or major. They still all have to be reported to the IRB. They all have to be reported to the sponsor. Your CRA should be picking up on them. They're going to want to look at your standard operating procedures and see what you're doing to prevent these mistakes from happening in the future. They also, if they see them happening quite a bit, if there's a consistent amount of mistakes being made and they're the same mistake, they're going to want you to revise your SOPs. If there's serious protocol deviations that jeopardize either if they compromise the study data or the safety of study participants, they will have you report protocol deviations. They will probably audit you. They're going to ask for a corrective action plan, CAP. For those of you who know, I've been through those. I've had to do those. It's not fun. Corrective action plan, you have to often retrain all the staff. The PI often has to get retraining from the sponsor. There's a lot of things, even when small mistakes are made. Every site has them. But I guess what the sponsors and what the IRBs are looking for is a pattern of mistakes being made. And they try to stop those patterns before they get out of hand and could potentially compromise the safety of a study participant or the integrity of the trial data. Here's another question. Hi, Dan. First of all, thank you for the videos. The topic I would like to ask you about is risk-based monitoring. And I've talked about this before. Do a search on my blog, Risk-Based Monitoring, and you'll find a couple of videos I did, a couple of articles. This was a big thing starting from early last year, 2013, and is becoming a bigger thing as we move along here in 2014. Risk-based monitoring, they're looking at every possible way to reduce costs associated in conducting clinical trials. They want monitors to start risk-based monitoring where they will randomly look at the documents instead of all the documents, such as source, CRFs, record-keeping, SOPs, etc. And first of all, risk-based monitoring is basically real-time data. So it stems from the electronic data capture. And you know how they ask sites to enter data within 24 to 48 hours. So they want to catch in real time any adverse events or any data that seems to be of interest that is happening across multiple sites or maybe at your site. They're trying to they're following the 80-20 rule, where they're trying to find 80% of the results that are being caused from 20% of something. So, for example, maybe a lot of sites are reporting migraines as an adverse event. This is just hypothetical. They could do a quick data analysis and see if they need to revise the informed consent, or whether the study needs to continue to go on, or whether it's causing unnecessary risk to study participants. They also can find mistakes pretty quickly. For instance, if the protocol is written in a way where it becomes very easy for sites to forget to do something at a particular visit, and it's happening across the board at a lot of sites, they can change that part of the protocol so they can tweak the 20% that causes the 80% of the results. Monitors will do less traveling. They're going to specifically focus on certain things like PKs being collected, whatever it is they're trying to target. And this all stems from real-time data entry, real-time data analysis. So please share your thoughts on, is it a good idea to follow risk-based monitoring? Will it compromise quality of the clinical trial data? I think it is a good idea. I think it's got to be implemented well. I think as a research clinic owner, I'm looking at the business behind it and seeing how this will affect my bottom line. Will my staff have to spend more time scanning documents and sending them to the monitors, as opposed to the monitor just coming into my office and collecting the data? As far as will it compromise the quality of the clinical data? No, I think it helps everyone. I think it helps the study participants most of all, because they can catch things pretty quickly, rather than like in the old days when the monitors would come to your clinic and rip out the paper CRFs and FedEx them back to the sponsor. Then the sponsor would analyze this every month or every 3 months they're doing that all in real time now. They're doing that on a daily basis now. So as far as safety from a study perspective, study participants perspective, they're safer. I think trials can move quicker now. I think one of the negative aspects of it from a research clinic's perspective is studies can get shut down quicker, because if a drug's not working, back in the day, it would take the sponsor a couple of months to figure out that the trial's not worth doing. Now, it can take a matter of days or weeks for them to figure out that, hey, this trial's not working, let's just shut it down. I've seen lately 3 studies shut down, whereas in the past, maybe even like 9-10 years ago, they wouldn't have been shut down for a couple months later, maybe even a year later. Also, how are the sponsors implementing this, and what are the approaches the industry is taking to make risk-based monitoring more successful? It just comes down to data entry. The technology is getting better. As the documents become easier to get scanned and just sent via a secure intranet or whatever, it's going to get easier for the monitors. Things are going to move quicker, but the research clinics have to be prepared, and they have to understand that there are ramifications to this stuff, like studies getting shut down quicker. But I think overall for the industry, it's good, and it's something that I think is necessary. What are the regulatory requirements for risk-based monitoring? It comes down to the technology. A lot of the technology has to be Part 11 compliant, I believe, or 22, FDA 22 compliant with the electronic systems and electronic data capture and all that stuff. Good question, though. And check out for more information on risk-based monitoring. Several of my blog posts. Just go on to clinicaltrialsguru.com and do a search for that. Here's one. These are good questions. I'm going to get through some of these right now. Trial assistant question. Hi Dan, I'm familiar with your website. I have a question about what exactly a clinical trial assistant does. I am an LVN and I have an interview with a company. I know who this company is, by the way. I'll not mention it. I want to ask if you know any of the day-to-day duties and usual pay for these positions. They also mentioned driving and wanted to know if these companies pay mileage. Any advice on this? Yeah, so research assistant, we hire them. They're used to draw blood, maybe to enter data, to drive study participants around. Basically, you do it all. You're assisting the study coordinators for your studies, and the pay is usually like half of the salary of a study coordinator, but the idea is to work your way up to become a study coordinator while you're continuing your nursing career. And I think you should continue the nursing career, but also do this. If hopefully you can do both. It is one of those things, the clinical trial assistant, that if you do well, you can stop your nursing career and just continue as a clinical research coordinator and maybe as a monitor eventually. Hopefully that helps. Hi Dan, thank you for your podcast. I have 3 questions. Right now I'm looking to find a PI to start a new site, which probably is going to be affiliated with the site I'm doing my training with. Should I look for specific locations which are in proximity with the highways or public transportation, or should I look for PI regardless of the location? How important is the location of the clinic as far as finding the study participants? So here's the question. You want to find out what kind of PI you're getting. Are you getting a psychiatrist, cardiologist? That's first. Then you figure out where you're going to have your site. Are there study participants with that condition in that immediate area? If the answer is no, it's not a good site. If the answer is yes, then it probably is a good location, provided that you can find a way to get those study participants to enroll in your studies. I would like to order your second DVD, How to Get More Studies. Is your website secure if I want to order it online? Yes. When you click on the Buy Now button, you'll see it takes you to a web address that has HTTPS. The S stands for secure. What kind of consulting do you offer in regards to clinical trials? I do all kinds of consultings: marketing, business development, SOPs, contracts, budgets, whatever it is. Shoot me an email. I can help you out. Maybe we can talk on the phone. Hi, Dan. My mother, who is an oncologist at NCI, I probably shouldn't have said that, has requested that I start a clinical trial research company as she is soon to retire. She can't give me much insight because of her obligations to her work. I am in the Baltimore, D.C. area. I want to mainly focus on oncology with an emphasis on minorities. I'm not trying to get rich, but would like to have self-sustainable impact on getting minorities into trials, even given the great amounts of consolidation. And by the way, I did a good interview with this lady in your area, and she works on oncology trials. Just do a search for oncology on my blog. Do a search for oncology interview Baltimore. And if you can't find the specific video, it's like an hour-long video I did with her interview. Email me and I'll shoot you the link. I wanted to introduce myself and start a dialogue as I embark on this journey. Any thoughts or info you could impart would be awesome. I would be willing to be a consultant or an advisor, but I'm still getting my bases together. It's early for me to sign you up. So it looks like you're trying to start a company. I would look for a PI first. Look for an oncologist that you trust or that is trustworthy in your area, that has some authority, and start working with that person. Then start getting the studies and then focus on enrolling minorities in the trials. I mean, this is complicated and I'm running out of time. So sorry for rushing through that one, but I will probably shoot you an email. Here's another one. I've been getting a lot. Hi, Dan. I own a standalone research facility. I contract with 2 physicians that oversee our studies. I have been in business for 7 years, and everything's going great. I am thinking about opening a second facility that is about 4 hours away. The new facility will have 2 different physicians overseeing the research. Should the second location have the same name, or would it be better to use a different name? I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. I would use the same name, especially if you're opening a second clinic. So if the ownership is the same, I don't see why you wouldn't want to name it something else. Just grow your own brand by using the same name. Do sponsors routinely give the same studies to both locations? No, but it is a lot easier to do so if you have one site where you get most of the studies, and then it becomes easier to pitch your other site to get the same study, especially if it's far enough away where you're not competing with yourself and you have different PIs. If you have 2 locations, is the business considered an SMO? No, unless you consider yourself an SMO. The SMO really are nationwide, generally. So 2 locations is just 2 wholly owned research clinics owned by the same company. That's not an SMO. And oftentimes SMOs don't even own the sites. They just go in there and manage the sites. They own the studies. They don't own the sites. And then they pay the PIs on a contract basis. So there's little nuances there. But if you want to market yourself as an SMO, you can. I would recommend against it. Do you know any business advisors that could help me make a business plan? Yes, that is what I do. Email me. That is part of my consulting company where I will do that. Last one, because we're running out of time here. Insurance for a research clinic. Thanks, Dan. I have a unique situation where choosing the insurance for my business is a bit tricky. Your input will be of great value. I have a research clinic where 2 MDs come to my clinic and perform research-related activities. My site is listed on 1572 and acts as a primary site where we store drugs. I also have coordinators who go to the MD clinic and perform research-related activities. Their clinics are listed on the 1572. All the drugs and documents are stored in the clinic, but my coordinator regulates it. We do all the contracts, budget, research, billing, and regulatory for these MDs. What kind of insurance do we need to carry which covers us and the MDs who perform research for us? So you got to have premise liability for yourself, probably a $3 million or $2 million aggregate. Your MDs have to have their own medical malpractice liability, And oftentimes, if they're doing research, you have to let their medical malpractice company know that they're doing research. But usually that's something that MDs have to cover themselves. You can agree to split the cost if you want. If it costs them more because of the research, you may have to share that cost with them. That is the way I do it with my clinics, South Coast Clinical Trials, and with my other clinics, Breakthrough Clinical Trials. It can become tough to find the insurance companies, but I would work with the insurance malpractice that they have. And as far as premise liability, you can find that anywhere. Try Hiscox, HISCOX, for premise liability, and then for medical malpractice, talk to the individual doctors that you work with. All right, thank you guys for watching, and this is Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I want to give my clinical trial guru producers a shout out before I go. It is, and they are, Sarah Elizabeth Siegler, Resolve Research Solutions, Accurate Clinical Trials, Erdhart Clinical Trials, PTNR, Patrick Stone, Darshan Kulkarni, Biopharm Systems, Zymewire, Mozio, South Coast Clinical Trials, Breakthrough Clinical Trials, St. Paul Medical Research Center, Investigators Research Group, and Phlebotomy Services. Let me know if you want to be a Clinical Trial Guru producer. It is $99 for a lifetime membership. And shoot me an email, Dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thank you all, and until next time.